I decided to come on and make an episode about who we really are, who we truly are, and that being that we are consciousness. And I'm not the first person to say this, not at all. The whole point of this episode is to showcase how so many different cultures, everyone has been echoing the one same truth, that there's only one real reality, and that's the reality of consciousness. There is no separation between mind and matter, physical and imagination. It's all actually one thing. And why I think this is so important is because I assume if you're watching this channel, you may have had a exposure, let's say, to law of assumption, Neville Goddard, law of attraction, manifestation, astrology, all those things. Or maybe not at all. Maybe you just stumbled across this and it just came up in your feed somehow and you just wanted to check it out. If that's the case, that's totally fine. This is what we're here for, to actually deepen our understanding of how everything truly is just one consciousness. And this is why manifestation works, right? Because once you realize there is no separation between you and anything, and I mean literally anything, you are connected and unified with everything out there. That includes your desires, that includes all the money you could possibly want, that includes the exact person that you want, that includes your dream career, that includes literally everything, because you are everything. It just makes manifestation 1,000% easier to understand. And this is why I wanted to come on and talk about this, because it took me so many years to actually grasp this concept, to like truly sit down and grasp, okay, what the hell? Because I was introduced to manifestation probably the same way most people were, through Rhonda Byrne's The Secret. I went down that rabbit hole, had a lot of success, but it was still very hot and cold. And it wasn't until within the last year and I discovered law of assumption, Neville Goddard, consciousness, and I went really deep into just understanding how everything works. I mean, I did my philosophy degree at school, at university, and I loved it, needless to say. Now returning back to it, I can understand in a different context what so many philosophers were actually saying, and how so early on throughout the centuries they got it, they understood. And this is what I want to come on here and talk about. And like I said, that's the fact that we're all consciousness, because I want everyone just to think about your identity. So who you are. Let's give an example. Me, my name's Avalon, my age, I'm 27. Let's see, you think about your job, I'm an astrologist, I'm a mom, I weigh, I don't know, let's say 52 kilos. I don't actually know what I weigh right now, but let's just say 52 kilos. Let's say all these things. And let's say when somebody asks you your identity and who you are, maybe you give them similar answers. Maybe when you think about your identity, that is how you define yourself. Where you live, maybe your weight, your eye color, your hair color, all of these different things, right? But all of those things that you attribute to your identity, they can change. They're completely mutable. So if you were a certain weight, but you gained, let's say 30 kilos, or you lost 30 kilos, does that mean that you're not you anymore? What if you decided to change your name, or you got a cosmetic surgery and, you changed something about your physical vessel? Or let's go even deeper than that. Maybe in your personality, for so long you've identified with being an alcoholic, and now you're not an alcoholic. So is that identity of who you were before more real to the identity of that you are now? What about the location where you live? So when you change addresses, are you not yourself? Literally, when you think about it, every single thing about yourself, including your body, you can change, you can alter. I mean, we know that the cells in our body are literally dying and being replaced all the time. Every 7 years, every cell in our body has been completely replaced. So if that's true, then what is the continuity of that lies behind that self, that lies behind this identity, since identity is a concept that can change all the time, right? And that's consciousness. Because at the forefront of it all Every single person is an expression of consciousness, is God moving through them, and it's through all these different manifestations of people. It's just like imagining one really big bright light, and you put a blanket over that one light and you poked all these little holes in it, and all those little individual holes, kind of like the stars in the sky, were their own singular points of consciousness. And so it looks like they're these separate entities, right? But if you took away that veil, which you can imagine is like the veil of illusion, the veil of illusion of separation, which in Hinduism they call Maya, literally an illusion, it's all one, it's the same one light. It is the same one unified substance that is expressing through everyone and everything. And this is what I wanted to come on and talk about, because I think this is so fundamental for understanding how manifestation works, and how manifestation is actually just a byproduct of understanding the true nature of reality. And like I said, that's just all one thing. So I want to give another example on that. Aristotle himself, he talks about this, issue of continuity and identity, right? So for an example, let's think about wax as a substance. When you think about wax, you can change literally everything about it. It can harden, it can melt, it can heat up, it can dissolve. You could change its shape, its texture, its smell, its size, its flavor. Literally every way that your physical senses can perceive wax, it can be altered. Like we said, if it can have a different smell, it can have a different taste, a different texture, a different look, because it can be a different shape. Every perceivable way of its external properties can be altered. So how is it that we know it's wax? Like, what are you talking about then when we talk about that essence of wax that remains the same when everything else about it can be shifted? And ultimately, this is what we're talking about when we're talking about ourselves, right? Like, everything in our identity can be shifted, literally every single thing. So what is that continuity force that lies behind it, that still animates us, that life force, why we're still here, the fact that we exist? And that's consciousness. That's the one substance, right? That is the one essential substance that is moving through everything, even though it can change all different shapes, all different, expressions, personalities, characteristics, qualities. Everything about us can be altered, but the fact is, no matter what, we just exist, we remain. And as long as we remain, we can always change form, but we will never not exist. And I mean, that's one of the most fundamental laws of science as well. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So that fundamental force that exists within all of us is energy, which is actually consciousness, God, divinity, source, whatever you want to call it. We're all talking about the same thing. It's completely interchangeable. Spinoza, who was a Jewish philosopher in the 17th century, he really expanded this even more, talking about this one essential substance, right? And he was a pantheist and a monist. So basically he had the viewpoint that, nature and reality, the universe, it's all God. He had the belief that it's not separate, right? And I say belief, but I think he just realized the truth, because I mean, in my mind, it's not a belief. But anyway, he really thought about that God exactly is not this external transcendental thing that's separate from the universe that we all revere and pray to and whatever. It actually is us. We're all just a part of it. And that's what he was saying, going back to what Aristotle said about this one essential substance. So the definition of substance really has to be this completely independent, self-sufficient essence that exists independent of other things, all those mutable qualities that can change, right? So if that's the definition of substance, it makes sense that there's only one substance in the universe that everything is made out of, because if there were two substances, that would contradict the nature of substance, because then they would have to have a relationship to each other, there would have to be a connection, and would have to be able to understand and explain that. But then that wouldn't make sense, because substance has to be this completely self-sufficient, independent entity, and for there to be two, it already contradicts the definition of substance. And that's what Spinoza was basically getting at, the fact that there is one substance of all things. And again, we know this, it is consciousness. And so even the appearance of these physical things, of like physical matter, of 3D things, of all these things external to us, they're actually still made of the one substance, which is consciousness, which is God. God splitting itself into this appearance of splitting itself between mind, matter, subject, object, perceiver, perceived reality, right? So we experience it as a dualistic thing, but it's actually still one substance going on. It's just God experiencing it through different lenses. And it's like the same as giving an analogy of like the ocean. You know, you imagine the ocean and the expressions of the waves, they're just manifestations of the ocean. They don't exist independent of that ocean, right? That's just how it works. And so when we understand reality like this, you can really start to recognize that what so many cultures, so many religions, so many people have been saying all along, that everything exists within you. You know, all the divinity, all the answers, you have all the treasures within. And I remember reading or listening to these quotes and I was like, what the hell is everyone talking about? Like, that's, you know, it sounds like a nice bumper sticker thing, but I actually get it now, because the truth is there's nothing out there, because the out there is not separate from in here. It's all one thing going on. And this goes back to the most fundamental Hermetic principle written on the Emerald Tablet: as within, so without; as above, so below. As within, so without. It's the same thing, it's reflection. That's why astrology works, because it's a reflection. It's a mirror of what's going on at one time. This is why it's affecting. It's not even affecting, it's actually just showcasing us what is happening. And if you understand astrology, you can read the language to actually know, okay, but this is coming from within. So it's about knowing that reality is all one thing. It's all one being. It is all one God consciousness happening through all these different manifestations, expressions, permutations, variations. You know, God just wanting to discover and remember itself through this process, right? And that's what's so exciting, and that's what makes it so exciting about knowing that we are part of that and coming back to this remembrance. And I really think this remembrance is going to pick up so much, considering now that Pluto's in Aquarius. Like, the development of our consciousness on a collective level it's oriented this way because it's inevitable. It's inevitable that we all come back to that remembrance. It's the only way to go. But of course, there's all these different, you know, journeys and timelines, right? But it's so cool when you understand you are one with God. And this is why you'll understand that manifestation is flawless. It's just a law, because whatever happens internally must be reflected or projected into your external reality. And some people on here may know about Neville Goddard. He's a famous metaphysical teacher that basically popularized the law of assumption. And essentially the law of assumption is whatever you assume to be true, it must be true for you. And there's no logic to it at all. It's just whatever you assume to be true. And remember, assumption is something that you don't even need to have evidence for. When you make an assumption about something, you don't have the evidence for it yet, you're assuming. But you can consciously assume things in your favor, and if you don't contradict that or oppose it, it has to be true. And why is that? Because again, if coming back to the fundamental core principle, if you understand the nature of reality, everything is one thing, then what you select and what you perceive and what you're aware of internally has to reflect externally. It has to, because the external doesn't have a mind of its own. It's all one thing. And that is why, manifestation, like I said, is just a flawless technique, because essentially everything is one thing, the external and the internal. But the internal is the cause of it. Consciousness is the cause substance. So because we as human beings are sentient and we have awareness and we have consciousness, we can deliberately choose and intend things, and we will influence our realities and our environments, because we're God. And this is what Christ was all about. He was literally the representation of Christ in man. And that goes for everyone. Every single person is Christ, and they just become awakened to their own consciousness. And if you want to understand more about this, I highly recommend checking out The Power of I Am, Eric's channel. He does such an incredible job of explaining scripture and how it perfectly showcases the fact that our internal world and our consciousness affects everything in our reality. And this is why manifestation is flawless. And I mean, that is barely scratching the surface of it. Like I said, there's so many different philosophers, there's so many different things going on that really expound and explain upon this. And this is why I wanted to start this channel, because, you know, I know there's so much manifestation content out there, right? There's so much law of assumption, there's so much of all this amazing stuff. And that's beautiful, because we all, you know, absorb different wisdom, different perspectives, things that probably align more with where we're at and our own wavelength. And I know for me, this knowledge has just completely changed my life. It has completely transformed my life. And I think it is the most invaluable knowledge out there. And I know that not many people talk about it from a philosophical lens and standpoint. And I don't think that you need to verify it, because all you need to do is apply this knowledge, and you'll see for yourself. You'll see for yourself how it works, and how, like I said, it is an immaculate law. It's just, reality is just reflecting who you're being. This is why you'll hear people say, like, life has nothing to give you. It just shows you what you already give to yourself. This is why, again, it's always internal process. And if you go, one of my favorite book series of all time, Conversations with God, one of my favorite lines in there is, if you don't go within, you go without. And that's always really stuck with me, and it's just deepened my understanding of reality, because it's like there's nothing to change out there. As Neville Goddard says, you just change yourself, because as soon as you change yourself internally, the external will reflect. Okay, that's this, because this is the cause, right? And we've been programmed to understand reality in an opposite way. We think everything is actually out there, and we need to manipulate, and we need to control, and we need to do all these things, and there's just these facts, and there's these laws that just exist, and there's nothing we can do about it. We have been programmed and conditioned to think we are so powerless to change anything. And of course, this is intentional, because we are so powerful. I mean, if everyone came into this world understanding how powerful they were, imagine how reality and just how the state of the world would be right now. It would be completely different. So of course there's people out there that benefit from telling you that, yeah, you have no control. There's these things that, you know, you just cannot change about yourself, about your own reality. You just have to accept things, be a realist. But like I said, we've been programmed opposite. And so this is why it's my intention to bring whatever knowledge and wisdom I can in my own way, because I know it will resonate with people out there, because I intend to help you guys awaken to your true nature and who you really are, who we all really are. Because if we're all one being, helping each other helps everyone and helps ourselves, because I know there's no separation between me and you. And whatever you give, you're just giving to yourself. Whatever you receive, you're just receiving from yourself, because it's all one thing. It is all one unified consciousness phenomena going on. And there's just this appearance of external things, of external reality. And I get it. I get that if you're hearing this for the first time, you can be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Of course there's a physical reality. Of course this stuff, you know, is independent of me. Like, it sounds batshit crazy, and I totally get that. But as you explore, if you continue to listen to my channel, and what we're going to go more in depth about is the fact that the illusion has to be perfect. It has to be perfect to draw you in, to keep you there, to think it's real. Because if you could see through it straight away, you wouldn't be able to have an experience here. Everything would just literally fall apart. So the whole point is, it's a perfect illusion that is supposed to be self-sustaining, and it's going to have all these different tricks and things to try and enslave you into thinking that it's real. The limitations are real, the restrictions are real, you know, the constraints are real, but they're not. And you know, it's taken me a really long time to really understand this, and I understand it from so many different viewpoints, even from being an astrologer and doing so many astrology readings. Like, there's just no way anyone anymore like could ever tell me that this stuff isn't how reality actually works, because I've read hundreds of charts now, and it is just insane. It has been verified to me so much from reading people's charts how I will just know their birth information and I will know the most intimate details of things that happen in their life that sometimes people closest to them won't even know. How can I know that from somebody's birth time? Oh, because everything is a reflection of one thing. Everything is a reflection of consciousness, as within, so without. That's why it all works, right? And astrology itself, the fundamental principles of astrology also explain how consciousness, how reality, how manifestation all works. And so, yeah, I hope that you will stick around because I plan to release regularly all the time. Yeah, some of my episodes might be all over the place, they might be rants, but I know it's going to reach the people that it needs to reach, and those people that are here ready for this journey, right, and want to come along with me as we completely reawaken to who we are and the true nature of things. So thank you, I appreciate you for sticking around, and yeah, be sure to check out some final episodes. If you want to connect with me in other ways, I'm going to link my Instagram and things down below, also picking up a little bit more on TikTok. But yeah, I plan to be a lot more dedicated and committed to this channel. So thanks.